Welcome to Shifting from Grudge to Grit, Grace, and Gratitude. I'm Anissa Turan, and I'm here with my co-host Jamila and Ashley Holmes, all the way from Canada, gracing us with her presence at 5:30 a.m. in the morning. So we're really thankful and grateful that you are here at the very early start of your day. And we're also quite excited to delve into today's topic, which I'll disclose after both you and Jamila just greet and after we've welcomed you properly, Ashley.
Thank you, Anissa, and a very, very warm welcome to our listeners and especially to you, Ashley. It's an honor for us to have you join us today, and we are very, very grateful that you've made such an early start, especially for us. So we do appreciate that, and we are looking forward to hearing your story. And without further ado, I'll hand over to you to just say your introductions, maybe.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here to share my story and to, speak to these things that can sometimes be challenging in our lives. And I think the more that we can shed light on these types of conversations, then the better off we all are, because then we don't feel alone wherever we're at.
Yeah, thank you
Mm.
so much because it makes us feel so special that you are here and you're so willing and able to be so vulnerable and to share your story with us. And not everybody can do that. So I must acknowledge you for doing that and just for being here and spending this time and sharing so that other people can, learn from it and, find some sort of comfort and help through your words and your experiences.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So without further ado, I'm going to just introduce what our conversation is going to be about today. Really, the caption is from setbacks to serenity, gratitude and grit in fertility. What to expect today? We're going to talk about, I suppose, Ashley's inspiring journey of perseverance. Hopefully, some tools to nurture your mind, body, and spirit, and insights on embracing hope and healing. So, a little bit about Ashley. She's a holistic fertility coach who supports women struggling to conceive. She transforms their mindset and releases self doubt, limiting beliefs, and unconscious programming. A topic, I suppose, that not, as you say, not many people talk about it, potentially due to shame associated with it, guilt, and just not feeling like they belong in any shape or form. Um, I suppose Ashley's biggest focus is empowering women to create a fertile foundation. I love that. Within by reconnecting mind, body, and spirit. She is passionate about offering, I can never say this word. What is this practice? Ayurvedic.
Ayurveda.
Vedic.
Uh, yes. I can never say it or pronounce. I never know if there's a silent something there, but thank you for giving me that. Nourishment, healing, and reducing stress so that women can conceive with ease. Where did all of this begin for you? What is your story behind why this became your pursuit and purpose, Ashley?
I feel like my path found me, and through my own journey over a decade ago, I struggled to conceive and went to a fertility clinic and was eventually blessed with twins. But I also walked away with unexplained infertility and no answers from the doctor. And from that experience, I didn't think I could have any more children or that I could conceive naturally without medical intervention. And so that simply wasn't the truth. And when I landed on my yoga mat and began to embody these ancient practices and modalities, I was able to conceive naturally within 6 months. And so it really showed me what I wasn't accessing, what I wasn't tapping into, and what is available to all of us. And that had zero side effects and was holistic and was healing and felt good in my mind, body, and spirit. So I think that there is a lot to be said for how you feel in this process, how you feel in this journey, and the way that it is affecting you. Because the reason I didn't want to go back and use a clinic was more so the reason of the mental and emotional toll that it took on me, and that I didn't want to go down that road again. And so really, I think there needs to be a lot more support out there for the 1 in 6 people that are struggling to have a family. And so that's really why I offer this now, is from a place of hope and healing, and that there's more available to you, definitely more available than there was when I was experiencing this more than a decade ago.
Wow, unbelievable. You know what stands out for me, Anissa, is that, and I think this extends more like to all of us, not just to people who are going through issues and challenges or health challenges, is how unaware we are of the one thing that is closest to us, which is our bodies. We have no clue about it. It's like you said, you got onto your yoga mat, you started to dig and ask the questions to find out about your own body. And
Yes.
we tend not to do this. We take it for granted that, it's our body and that's it. But how many of us do actually delve into the process of learning about all of these different practices that are available to us, the different modalities that make such a positive impact on our lives and change our whole experience? Um, is that something that you found that you had done only once you had experienced this, the infertility, and then it made you question and learn more, or was this always something that you wanted to know about yourself and take on that holistic um, adoption of your lifestyle?
I really, you know, began to become conscious and aware of what I was putting in my body and the effect that it was having on my body, and to be mindful of that, because before I just did as I was told, so to speak, without thinking of any of the consequences. And so I think it's important to know that whatever you're doing, the effect that it's going to have on you and how you're going to feel. And when I landed on my yoga mat, initially what drew me in was, the hot heated classes and the quick, fast paced movement was initially what got me hooked, but that's not really where the transformation occurred. That was what got me hooked, but embodying practices like yin yoga and restorative yoga, and these practices that are very healing and relaxing and calming for the nervous system, is really what helped me to be able to have a transformation and to make shifts and changes, because I needed to slow down. I needed to learn how to surrender. I needed to learn how to let go of control. And I think for so many of us, we live these very yang lifestyles, and we're not embodying any of this yin energy. We're not bringing the feminine with the masculine sort of society that we're living in, and it doesn't create balance within us.
I love that you're bringing in the yin and yang, because it's bringing that divine feminine and divine masculine, because it's not just about the feminine and masculine, it's about the divine aspect of that. And I suppose the masculine, or the wounded masculine, as one would rather refer it to, within us, is really the dynamic that is led by ego. Right. So when we're led by ego, we're seeking to control. And the reality is, within that idea of control is the illusion of it all. So I absolutely love that you're saying that it's one thing connecting with your body and your mind and your soul, but it's also being willing to let go of the desire to control and just letting it be. What, other than the yoga practices, allowed you to practice that radical surrender that one has to have?
Really, none of that would have happened without being and studying and doing, deep meditations that, brought what was in my subconscious mind to the surface and brought light to things, because you need to be able to have space and time to do so in order for these shifts to happen and these changes to occur and to have these light bulb moments of, wait a minute, I can consciously choose my path forward. I don't have to unconsciously keep moving through life in the same way. And I think that was a big awakening for me to realize that I'm not a victim in my life and I get to create the reality that I want, and that I was then resourced enough to be able to do that. And I think oftentimes we're giving our powers away outside of us. And it's really just shifting that locus of control of, okay, what can I control? And let's focus on those things and really let go of the rest. You can do so much, and then you just need to be able to have peace with where you're at, no matter where that is in the moment. And just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean that it's going to happen. But so often, myself included, we're living in the future. We're not living in the present moment. And, if it's not this time, it's going to be the next time, and it's going to be the next time, and months turn into years, and you're energetically being drained and depleted as you're going through this.
I love the fact that you touched on the on us not being victims, and it's so important for us to reframe how we look at ourselves. And I love the idea that scars are symbols of wisdom and rather not weakness, because they tell a story of our courage and our resilience. So maybe you can just tell us how you have come to view the struggles you faced as sources of strength rather than setbacks.
Definitely. I mean, certainly that wasn't the case for me always. I viewed needing support, that I couldn't do this on my own. I viewed that as a weakness. And I viewed that, being a new mom of twins, I felt like I was not equipped. I felt like I wasn't the mom that I wanted to be at that moment. Instead of giving myself grace and, you know, pat on the back for everything that I was doing. So I think it's really that learning, or it was for me, that, my mind can be my best friend or my worst enemy. And it's for me to choose wisely, and it's for me to be conscious of the thoughts that are flowing through my mind. And so it's really important. I didn't think that I had a choice, or that a thought could just be a thought, and I didn't need to amplify that and back that with an emotion and have that land energetically in my body if it doesn't serve me. And so really my training has just allowed me to be a witness to my thoughts and observe my thoughts and choose if I want to keep thinking that thought, or if something else is going to serve me better moving forward.
Anissa, I find that in solitude, that's when we discover like an intimate connection with who we are, as people. And a lot of people are very apprehensive about that, about being in solitude with themselves. And this is a process, obviously. I, I mean, I know that you're very comfortable with yourself, but like, are there any practices or habits that you have, you have that have helped to cultivate this connection with self?
Definitely. One of the big shifts that has really helped me and been supportive for me is to begin my day with meditation, and to take that quiet and that peace into the rest of my day, to start the day with that energy and vibration, and to begin it in the way that I want, instead of being pulled out of bed by mom and feeling like I'm behind, feeling like I'm in a rush, feeling like I can't catch up as I move through my day. And so it's important for us, I think, to pause and take those moments of solitude and stillness when we can find them. And I also get on my mat every day, and what that looks like doesn't matter, but it's just showing up for myself and being consistent and knowing that I will always feel better when I step off of my mat. And it really has just been a big teacher for me to understand my body, to listen to my body, to give my body what it needs, and not coming from a place of ego, but actually listening to my body and saying, okay, this is what my body is asking, or this is a place that needs attention today, and just having that awareness and knowing what is going to work best for me in the moment. Because for so long, I think we can really be influenced from outside and think that we have to be doing certain things a certain way so often, or it's not effective, or it's not beneficial. And it really has been my learning that there needs to be balance, and we need to incorporate all of these things into our lives in a way that fits and serves us, and that you can pretty much only do something for so long before it's going to catch up to you, and you're going to have to pause and realize, okay, this is too much, or this is making me out of balance, and now this is showing up. I'm having pain, or I'm experiencing infertility, because our symptoms are always signals of something that is an imbalance within the body.
Anissa, what about you?
So I'm listening to an earlier comment that Ashley was speaking to, and that is coming into the present moment. And I think being in touch with our bodies, and even though we're talking about infertility here, I think this goes broadly that anyone and everyone can actually take into consideration, because when we're not in the present moment, we're not observing our thoughts, we're then participating, as you rightly state. And even as I'm sitting here, I stumbled across a thing on Facebook earlier, which said, don't take day by day, take moment by moment. But it's so difficult because we're so conditioned to think ahead of time. What if we don't fall pregnant by this time? What if we're not married by this time, or have the house and the white picket fence, or the full family? And so we place all these undue pressures on ourselves that takes us into fear of the future, or we are actually battling these past issues that we feel might be on repeat again. So for me, certainly, I find myself in this moment, as we are talking in this conversation, kind of stuck between, hey, what am I fearing of the future? Like I'm sitting having this conversation, and I'm hearing you so grounded, and I'm taking the lessons to say, okay, what have I forgotten? And what have I forgotten in terms of the solitude? What have I forgotten in terms of whether it is not yoga for me, but maybe it's music, maybe it's just dancing and being free instead of the vices. And the vices for me personally is Netflix and going onto a series and just numbing it all so that I can't feel. Or it is putting the wrong things in my body. So I'll go for sugar, the chocolates and the sweet treats. So I certainly know that disconnects me from what I'm needing to be more in touch with. So I love that you are saying find the things that brings us back and closer so that we can deal and face the parts of ourselves that we not wanting to, whether it is guilt, because the one thing that came to mind was like, wow, you weren't able to conceive and then you got twins. As a
Mm-hmm.
mom, when I had my firstborn, it was like, yikes, nobody told me about the dark side, about becoming a mom and not knowing what to do. And it was hard. And then there's the guilt part, like there's other women that would love to be a mom, and yeah, I'm complaining about my issues. And I can only but imagine with two. Did you ever have those moments of, damn, like be careful what you wish for, and this is not fun? Because we don't admit these parts. But did you have those, Ashley? And I'm intrigued to hear how you overcame it.
I think that I did feel a lot of guilt because I had wanted this for so long. I had been blessed with twins, and yet in the reality, it was very hard work, and I didn't feel like I was up to the job sometimes. I didn't feel like I had enough hands to go around. And then I felt guilty and felt like every single moment should be pure love and pure joy. And that wasn't reality, right? And so I think we can have a lot of expectations of ourselves. and of the way we think things should and could be. And it's really letting go of all of that and just embracing the moment and know that in each moment you are doing the absolute best that you can. And so I think only when you sort of move through that are you able to look back and been like, I should have given myself a lot more grace and I should have given myself a lot more self-love because, you know, those moments were hard. They were very sleep deprived, and often I didn't know which day it was or what hour it was, or I would phone my husband crying and be like, can you please come home? Like, I can't do this any longer today on my own. I need some extra hands. And so I think that so often we're scared to ask for help. We're scared to ask or say that we can't do it all right now in the moment ourselves, and that, everything isn't perfect and everything isn't done, and that's okay. I think that often we are our harshest critics and that we need to be mindful of that, and we need to really just lower our expectations in a lot of cases.
Absolutely. And I think, society and family place such unrealistically high, demands on us. We're supposed to be these images of Wonder Woman, I think. And I think that extends to men as well. That when we find ourselves lacking with something, even though the task might be something that's really difficult to do, we we are our harshest critic, as you say. And for me, the concept of radical self kindness, I think, is such a powerful act of self compassion and so underutilized by most of us because of these unrealistic demands. Because once you feel that you can't ask for help, you feel that when you're not meeting the expectations that you're a failure, and you just less than in terms of everyone else in society. And that's such a huge thing that we need to overcome as a society on the whole. And I think that forgiveness is one of the hardest parts of healing. And I think self forgiveness, particularly, is so difficult to do. What has your experience been? And especially with forgiving yourself for not being able to manage, and like you say, um, calling your husband and telling him that, I need more hands, I need more help, or whatever it is. How was that process for you, where you realize that I have to come to a stage where I have to forgive myself because these are absolutely unrealistic demands? And motherhood, whether you're having one child or twins or triplets or whatever it is, nobody prepares you for it. Doesn't come with a handbook. I always felt that I had tons of information and tons of, people advising me about it for my entire pregnancy. But that night when I came back home with my baby boy was the most eye opening experience I'd had in my entire life. Because at that point, I knew that I knew nothing. And I knew that I was on my own then, and the responsibility was mine. So huge demands and pressures on you. How did you go about that? Because self-forgiveness is absolutely imperative in any aspect of someone's life.
I think that it's definitely a process. It's not, for most of us, a one and done type of thing. And that's something that my clients often come to me about is, I thought I healed this already. I thought I dealt with this already. And I think it's for us to learn that healing isn't linear and these things are going to surface, but they're not going to have the same energetic charge as they did previously. And so to understand that it's a process, but every time that we can sit with it and we can be with it and we can be okay with it and allow whatever wants to flow through us to flow through, to pass, then it becomes a little bit easier and we can give ourselves a lot more grace and just find gratitude in the moment for where we're at. And it doesn't mean that we'll be there forever, but there is beauty in all of the moments, even when, it
Mm.
feels like there's no light, it feels like there's no hope. There is beauty that does emerge from that, but often it's hard to see it in the moment.
Yes, absolutely. There is beauty in that for sure. And also the understanding that everything that we experience comes with a lesson that we are meant to be learning. And I
Mm-hmm.
found that, that really helped me to understand and accept whichever experiences that I've been having, and to question myself, and to be more aware when I'm having the good experiences as well. And not just to question when I'm going through challenging times. So definitely agree with you on that one.
Definitely. I think one of the big teachings that really was helpful for me is, we're always seeking pleasure. And yet, on the flip side of that, there's pain. And so realizing the duality of life is that they're both. And when you can embrace both, with totality, then you experience the totality of life to the extent that you're meant to. And so I think there's a lot to be said for being able, infertility isn't comfortable at all. And, being able to sit with those uncomfortable emotions and feelings, and being able to go through that roller coaster ride with a little bit more ease and to come into a place of equilibrium a little bit more is going to serve you so well, especially when you're a new mom, especially when emotions are high and hormones are high.
Mm, mm,
Tell me, Ashley, so in terms of societal, expectations that we alluded to earlier on, let's talk about boundaries. How do we handle sort of these boundaries? Because when we have these pressures of you're married now, when are you going to have a baby? And then there's even you've had the first baby, and it's like when you're having the second one, you can't just have one. It's selfish. How do you cope with the pressures of those societal expectations, but being able to establish boundaries within that? Because already you're sitting with your own guilt of not being able to conceive, or, the shame around it. And now you still have others constantly probing you. Have you been able to do that during your difficult period? Or did the awareness only come afterwards?
I would say the awareness only came afterwards, not when I was in it. I wouldn't say that I felt very enlightened when I was in it, and I think that's why it's helpful to have, someone to support you, someone to sort of take a bird's eye view of everything as you're going through it, because it is challenging. And one of the things that really used to trigger me the most was when people would ask, "Did you have your twins naturally, or do twins run in the family and stuff?" And it just used to irk me so much that, like feeling like I have to justify myself and that I have to explain myself, and that I'm just so grateful and blessed every day that they're here. And it would just irritate me because there's this tone behind it of, did you need help? Did you need this support? Were you able to do this on your own? And just, depending on the circumstance and where am, I speak my truth, but not everybody deserves to know and have every, ounce of information alongside of it. And to just, you know, I always speak my truth now, but, I do it in a way that honors me as well as respects my own boundaries, because not everybody needs to and deserves to have privy to my life.
Sure. I mean, I
uh,
can relate to what you're saying around not being educated or enlightened or wise enough to establish those boundaries. I mean, when I was pregnant too, I've had three cesareans through the grace of God. They it doesn't matter how they came into this
Mhm.
world, but I was made to feel quite guilty and quite inadequate as a woman that I had gone the easy route of having cesarean births. And it's not like I did so by choice. At the time, I wasn't all, educated that I could have waited a bit longer and tried to, delay it for a week and see if baby would, do what he needed to do. But at the same time, if I look back today, I'm like, who cares which way they came into this world? The blessing of having the child, that is what the focus should have been, not what you didn't want to experience pain, or the medical fraternity is lazy and want to work around their schedules. I feel everything's divinely put out in the way that it should be. You were meant to have twins. I was meant to have three cesareans or whatever the case may be, but it's that societal constant nudging and grief and this constant, almost like guilt trips of why you didn't do it in the way that it was supposed to. And I still, for many years after my kids, felt that until I thought to myself afterwards, no. And I mean, my eldest is almost 18. And only after my third one, I realized something where I had these severe pains at like the almost 20 week mark. And I was like, imagine I had to have natural birth. I don't think I was designed as a woman to have maybe taken on that amount of pain. And maybe I was designed to have the postpartum pain that comes with having cesareans. And who was that? Whose decision was that? That was nobody else's decision but my own.
Mm.
But anyway, I just wanted to bring that part across because I think that's also not always spoken about enough.
I think that that's true. I mean, I was deemed high risk with twins, and I was told, I went to prenatal class, and yet it was like everybody else, I really want you to try for natural birth, but you, and I was sort of categorized over here, you will probably have a C-section. And it was like, says who? Why? Why can't I even try? And that's the way it went. But those were also sort of the seeds that were planted for me, was that this probably wasn't going to be possible. And then after experiencing a C-section, and knowing how hard it was to look after two kids afterwards, when I'd never had a surgery like that before. I didn't know how hard it would be to change and feed and bathe these little ones when your abdomen has been cut open. And so there was a learning in that. And when I did conceive naturally, I was adamant that I didn't want another C-section. And so I really, even though the doctors here deemed me geriatric at the time, I was way healthier, mind, body, and spirit the second time around. And so I went hiking when my water broke, and I did have a VBAC, and I was back at Baby and Me Yoga 10 days later, and was really empowered in the process because I had been shown and proven that, anything is possible, but I also needed to really trust and honor my body and listen to my body, which the first time around hadn't been the case. There had been a disconnect between mind and body. And so when I had that, and I knew how to breathe, and I knew that I could, breathe this being into the world. And so just having that knowledge and that background definitely helped me in those trying moments when I did at one point. I was like, no, just give me a C-section, like I'm done. I don't want to keep this taking forever. This is 12 hours later and this baby still isn't here. And my husband's like, you don't want that? And I'm like, no, I don't want that, but where's this baby? Come on.
Yeah, I'm just listening to this, and it's just blows my mind about the unrealistic expectations that society places on women. Anissa, you mentioned that people considered that you had the easy way out. But like you say, Ashley, this is somebody cutting into you and removing this human being from you. How is that easy by any means? How is it
No.
possibly easy at all? And we're meant to be these strong women, and you're supposed to take everything because that's how it's always been done, and that's just naturally how we are meant to be. And we find ourselves so pressured into actually performing in that sense, and not being authentic to our true selves, where that disconnect is consistently there, because once the connect is there, then you stand in your true authenticity, don't you? And it doesn't matter what anyone else has to say or what perceptions they may have of you. You holding that authenticity about yourself is what's most important. What does authenticity mean to you today, and how do you protect it in your day-to-day life?
I think for me, it's doing what you say you're going to do and really living in a way that, what you say is what you do. You practice what you preach. And I don't feel like I'm preaching at people, but I'm always sort of
Leading by
bringing
example.
leading by example and bringing light to, if you don't have your health and well-being, how are you going to be able to easily bring a child into this world? That should always be at the forefront, and often it's at the back burner, or, we think we can just medicate our ways into achieving our results, and we may be able to, I was able to, but it took a long time and it was a painful process. So I wouldn't choose that again. So it's important to realize, our choices, and does that feel aligned for me? Is that how I want to feel, how I go through this, or is there something else available to me? And I think that authenticity really needs to come from a deep place of inner knowing. Do you know yourself, and are you true to yourself, and do you go to bed at night looking back at your day and feel positive about the choices and the actions that you took because they were aligned and they came from your heart and it wasn't coming from anywhere else?
Yeah. I think, and also for me, we all on this journey of self enlightenment, and getting to know as much as we can about ourselves, and to improving where we are, where we are um, as people. And this is one of the big points, right? Being authentic to yourself. But I think also in delivering that message, there are many times where we are tempted to not be authentic in our daily lives. And whether it's to avoid conflict, um, whether it comes from seeking approval from, our peers or our family or whatever it is, um, just the fear of vulnerability and all of that. There are times where we're tempted to, but I think what's so important for us to keep in mind is the issue of self forgiveness again and again and again. Because it doesn't mean that once we've found the space of authenticity, that it's going to be maintained there. As human beings, we are tempted, we do slip. But for me, what I've found, especially in my own experience, is to be kind to myself, to not have that high expectation placed on myself consistently, to know that there are times when I might dip, I might give in to some sort of temptation or the other, but to always remember to practice self forgiveness so that you can push yourself back up to that space and hold yourself accountable as well.
Definitely. And one of the teachings that comes to mind for me from my guru in India is that, we want to be able to be vulnerable to life. And the extent that we are able to do that is the extent that, we're going to experience the fullness of life. And often, you know, vulnerability is seen as a weakness, and to really embrace those parts of ourselves, to embrace all of ourselves, and to, you know, show the light and the dark.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I noticed you use the word bring light um, and light to the dark. There's this often knowing that it's not always going to remain dark, and that the two will always coexist, and that it's okay, allow and be okay with it coexisting in the way that it should be. And it's tough because when it's really dark and you're going through the motions and you're not somebody to reach out or ask for help, and you feel isolated or you isolate yourself, it's not easy even to go to a meditative practice or a journaling practice when you feel in that disempowered state. I don't even want to call it a victim state. And that disempowered state is, it's not easy to then shift into that life. What are, other than the traditional ways, or maybe how did you bring yourself out of that darkness and back into light again, outside of meditation or the yoga or breath work? Is there anything new that you can introduce us to?
I think one of the things that helps me to energetically come back to a place of balance and alignment and a place of more lightness is to work with my chakras, is to work with my energy body, because we are energetic beings. And in doing so, you can just take that time to work with whether it's all of them or one of them, whatever is showing up for you, and give it what it's desiring, to come and bring light and balance back into that space within your body. And so, whether you need to work with your root chakra because you're feeling ungrounded at the moment, then to do practices that help with that and to clear that energy. I think it's important we are so disposition to, shove things under the rug, think that we're going to get back to them, think that they're not going to catch up with them, think that we don't have to address things in the moment, yet the better off we are to be able to address things in the moment and move through things in the moment, the better off we're going to be in the long run. And I think, that was a deep learning for me, was that this isn't going anywhere. You cannot run away from it. You are taking exactly what you're dealing with wherever you go in the world. And so, like, I married a man from New Zealand. I met him in New Zealand. For the longest time, I ran away, but everything was still with me no matter where I went. And it was the understanding that this is what we do. This is how, most of us do one of four things, when we're faced with a challenge. And how can we, instead of doing that, instead of our go to reflex reaction, how can we learn to be okay with that? How can we sit with that? And it will pass, and things pass instead of energetically accumulating them in our lives.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point that you've made. And, just to make sure that we always pause and reflect, because we don't have to just immediately respond or react to everything. And in doing so, by pausing and reflecting, you tend to make sure that you get that realignment with self. And also, I think, just asking yourself and realigning with your own values is something that's really important, that helps a lot. And for me, I'm always asking myself, why am I doing this, or who am I doing it? Am I doing it for me, or am I doing it for someone else? And so that just helps me to get myself grounded again and to understand why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. But definitely that pausing and reflecting and taking accountability for where you are in that present moment. And you mentioned, about you can't run away from yourself. I had a friend, a business partner of mine, and at the time, I was just freshly out of my divorce, and had a lot of issues, and I just kept on saying to him, I just need a holiday. I just need to get away from this place. And he would always say to me, Jamila, you can go anywhere in the world, but one thing you cannot do is run away from yourself. So whether you're in Italy or Australia or America, your problems will still be there with you. Sort your issues out first, and then it doesn't matter where in the world you are.
Absolutely. So true.
I'm having a bit of a chuckle here because whether
I
it is
see
the holiday, I'm thinking about it's like it's whether it's the holiday, Ashley and Jamila, or whether it is going on a shopping spree, whether it is indulging in whatever thing it is to, run away and not sit with it. I think the important takeaway for me is to sit with the darkness, because you can only emerge into that light once you really embrace it, befriend it, acknowledge it, thank it, recognize it. It really is not going to pass. Even if we say, if that thought is disempowering, if you don't sit with the disempowering thought, as I've always said, treasure the trigger, because the trigger is there with a core message to take on. And if we keep on shutting down the message, the universe will conspire that we have to be taken down, literally, figuratively, to pause, to listen. And it's often, as we know through those dark experiences, it's when we lose something, or when we had an expectation and it wasn't met. So, yeah, I suppose it is. They say change is as good as a holiday. I still like the idea of the holiday and getting away, even if it just temporarily just takes you into a new realm. But I guess it's, let's change the narrative around that. Let's go on holiday to go into a pause, to regroup, to revitalize. And maybe that's a way to move forward with it, to have the
Yeah.
best of both worlds there.
And I think, Anissa, to your point, to remove the fear of being able to
Mm,
sit with it. That's where it is. When you're able to remove the fear of any action in your life and to start resonating and responding from a space of love, it makes all the difference, right? It gives you a totally different perception of, of any action that's happening to you. So
mm,
that's what I
mm,
found in myself, is that just get over the fear of where you're at, because it might be something different. And for me, change was the biggest thing for me. I needed security in my life. So any hint or semblance to any sort of change already put my back up, and I was so fearful of it. And I realized much later on in life and after a lot of work, it's okay, embrace it,
mm.
rid of the fear.
Ashley, so I mean, that fear acronym, to me, many years ago, I changed and I said faith enhances and restores. Now, in the context of infertility, I mean, does faith play a role here? Is that we know that at the end of the day, our paths are written, and if in our paths having offspring is written for us, then we need to walk by faith and know that that's a reality. But in other cases, maybe that's not written for someone. How do we leverage, and I'm not saying to use my acronym for fear as faith enhances and restores, but how do we look at faith and say, we can do whatever we need to do, take the action, go for fertility test, and and do whatever we need to do. But if it's not on the cards for us, how do we resonate with that?
I think for a lot of people, I think that's also why they find me, is they're also spiritually seeking, and they're feeling a bit lost in their journey, and there's a bit of a disconnection there. And so I think the biggest gift to give someone is to have peace in the present moment, whatever that present moment brings. And so, you know, I can't promise, the fertility clinics can't promise that everybody we work with is going to have a baby, but to know that and to learn that, we all have a karmic path, and so it may or may not mean children for us, but can we have peace with that? And I think that's really where the struggle is the resistance to what life is bringing us. And when we can let go of the resistance and let go of the what should be instead of accepting what is in the moment, then the better off we're going to be. And it's not an easy place or space to be in, but it is a place that you do want to be able to get to. And I think that there's a grieving process that has to happen, if you have not been able to have children, or if you've used your last embryos, and, there is no other path forward in that way. But I think that there are many children in the world, and there are many ways that we can still give and express our love. And so I think that maybe if it's not happening the way that you think or it should happen, you know, to approach it with an open mind of what else is possible for me, you know? If I still want to be a parent or I still want to be a mother, you still can be in many ways. And so I think that often we're very attached to how we want this to look like and be, but to realize that there is a path for you, and it may not be the path that you thought you were going to get on. You know, motherhood not look like the way you thought mother was going to look like either, but really to just find find for yourself in the moment that peace with whatever life is bringing to you.
Beautiful. I like that because what it's saying is, in pursuit of the pain of not conceiving, maybe the purpose is greater. Maybe the purpose is adoption. Maybe the purpose is serving women who may not be able to conceive and help them through it in the way that you are. The difference being you have been able to conceive afterwards. But it's really to say, what is the purpose behind this divinely orchestrated plan that the divine has put in place for me? What am I supposed to do with it? If I'm not a victim, where do I go from here? And how do I take others out of their pain, or make a kid happy and adopt a kid, or give charitable endeavors to children, whatever it is, and paying it forward if you weren't able to receive? Because pay it forward, I think, is always under the umbrella of I do, and I do with the intent that it must continue. But maybe paying it forward is not because you've received, it's maybe also what you can give others because you haven't received it. And I'm sitting here saying this right now, and I'm just giving myself that message back as well, because we always think that one has to pay it forward because somebody was good to you. But what if you never had any good come to you? It's maybe your catalyst to be that for everyone else. Something to think about, I suppose, for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that, Anissa. And also just to keep at the back of our minds that every experience is pushing us towards us finding our purpose and passion in life. And we all have different paths and journeys to getting to that final destination. And you've gone through your difficulties and all the challenges of the infertility, and fortunately for you, you have two beautiful babies to show for it. But you would never be in this space helping all the people that you are now currently helping if you hadn't walked that journey.
Precisely. I think it's really our job to sort of, and that is our biggest calling, is to find our purpose here on earth and to walk that path. And that's really why I birthed my business, is just this inner knowing of so many people need this help, so many people need this support, and often this is not available. And it works really for anybody to optimize their health and well-being, to create that fertile foundation, because we shouldn't be going into treatments just blindly without really taking that time to prepare the mind, body, and spirit for being open to receive, for being in a nourished place so that this can happen. Because what society deems nourishing may not actually be nourishing for you. And that was a big eye-opening thing for me, was to understand the sister science of yoga, which is Ayurveda, and to understand that I have an inborn constitution, and that includes, being in rhythm with nature, of choosing yoga practices that are best supportive for me, and food and breathing practices, and to understand my body on a deeper level. And that serves me for my whole life. It's not just a fad or a diet or a trend, which you see so much of out there, which really isn't helping women to understand and learn about their body more, and also to nourish it in the optimal way. And I think it's not the only piece, but it's a very important piece.
This fertile soil, I think you said fertile soil or
Foundation.
fertile foundation. That concept is actually quite profound if you think about it. We're talking fertility, but again, fertile foundation is, I think, the answer to us to live this holistic life, to be more in touch with ourselves, and to manifest from a more abundant place because you have reconnected with yourself on a profound level, and so then only you can water. And I love your use of words and analogies, nourish that soil, because we can't nourish soil that is, what's the opposite of fertile? Infertile, but for lack of a better word, that's toxic or not healthy, or that is under attack potentially by its external stresses. So I think you're hitting the nail on the head to say that it isn't sort of by no means a one size fits all to everyone, but go and find what that fertile foundation is for you, because
Mm-hmm.
that is then, in essence, what becomes the stepping stones, whether it is reconnecting to your purpose or rediscovering yourself or serving others. It's that fertile foundation part and nourishing it accordingly. So I'm very grateful to have learned that from you today, Ashley, because it's so simple, but when we have to put it into practice, it's not as easy because the
No.
conditioning that we're so used to, wreaks havoc. Those are the external toxins or stresses. I want to build on this analogy of fertile foundation and really, what did you do prior? That's what I'm intrigued to find out. Prior to this calling, what were you doing before? And how has that created an imbalance to that fertile foundation for you?
I think for myself, I really, I was very yang like. I was always, doing spin classes and quick moving, fast paced things. I never really took the opportunity to slow down. I had never understood that I had really lived decades in fight or flight mode, and that I needed to work with my nervous system, and that it wasn't a one and done thing, that I needed to reset. And I might need to reset often, and that's okay. But to understand that I was a very stressed out person and I hadn't healed my past. And so it was my opportunity to heal my past, to be able to bring life into being. And so I think that eventually we will be called to make peace with those parts of ourselves that we haven't, and to do the inner work, because you can avoid it. But I think that often we will be called to step up and to take action and to look at those parts of ourselves and to really embrace and embody all of us and return to our wholeness. And I think we can walk away, we can think that we're not up to the task, but we're never given more than we can handle, and we're always exactly where we're meant to be. And I think with that, knowing that even in those tough moments, you know that you wouldn't be there if you weren't meant to be. And if you were meant to be anywhere else, you would be.
So true, Anissa. And we've spoken about this over and over again in many of our episodes, that
Mm.
we in the space that we are meant to be at. And it's just about us taking accountability, clearing our vision to see why exactly we're in this space and to learn from it, to learn the lesson so that we could move to the next point and the next one after that. So, very, very wise words from you, I think, Ashley.
I'm reading a comment. I know we're almost closing off, but I just want to read this comment from Ranjini Sanjay. She said this is a timely and important topic. Fertility challenges can be incredibly difficult, and it's inspiring to hear stories of women who have overcome these obstacles. Thank you for sharing this valuable information. Thank you,
Aw.
Ranjini, for sharing that beautiful comment. We appreciate it. In closing, Ashley, I mean, it's been lovely sitting with you. You've got this very calming disposition and, this very nurturing, nourishing, to use your word, energy. What would you like to leave as your final words of wisdom for the audience to take away, in whichever context you feel called to do so now?
I would love for you to know that you're not alone on your journey, that there is support available to you, and that you don't have to be a lone wolf and do it all on your own. And if there's no one in your inner circle that is going through this, then to seek support, because in this day and age, we are blessed to have so much available to us really at our fingertips. And so if you are struggling, please don't struggle and suffer silently. That is why I created my business, and I have a Holistic Fertility Coach Facebook group that you are more than welcome to join, to land in and to find a safe, sacred space to be.
That's wonderful. And I just like to add one more thing to that, Ashley, is that, it's for all of us who have not gone through this process, who have not had that experience where it's been difficult for us to conceive and to have children, to be mindful of what the next woman is going through, and to create that safe space and to try and break down those stereotypes that society has placed so unfairly for the women who hasn't met with the expectations that they deem to see as being a natural woman. So I think that's so important for us. That's something that I learned because my cousin, who was also my sister-in-law, as we were married to two brothers, had the most difficult time because she could not conceive. And her, the insecurity that she felt, the stereotypes that were thrown at her by my in-laws, by society, as if there was something wrong with her, when there actually isn't, right? Her path to being a mother was just a different one, in that she had to go the adoption route. So it's for us to create those safe circles and spaces for people who are experiencing this, and to be mindful of what they're going through.
Thank you, ladies. I want to leave one final parting point in what I am summarizing from the gifts from Ashley and the wisdom from Jamila, is that you are sacred, whether you are in the official role of a mom or unofficial role, because as women, we have been designed to be nurturing. And the moment we are out of sync of that nurturing, divine feminine energy, whether you're a mother or not, it is asking you to come back home to yourself. It is asking you to come back to being that holistic, true part of who you're always meant to be, and serve in whichever shape or form that is going to take place. I want to thank you, Ashley and Jamila, for, yeah, it's been a wonderful, beautiful session today. And I do want you to stay on, Ashley, before we say goodbye, because we normally do a brief debrief with our guests. But thank you for being here. Thank you for being here so early and bringing your beautiful energy to us. Let's hope that we're going to nurture, nourish this fertile soil that you educated us with today. Bye from my side.
Yes, thank you once again, Ashley, for taking the time, for getting up so early. And we hope that this was an inspiring start to your day, and it'll inspire much more goodness in your day and assistance with those that need it. So thank you again. It was an absolute pleasure meeting you.
Thank you so much. I have goosebumps, and it's been a pleasure to be here with you today and to share this sacred energy with you both.
Thank you. I'll
Okay.
end the live on both sides and then let's have a brief chat. Thanks, everyone.